In the 2024 general election campaign, the Conservative Party is vying for an unprecedented fifth consecutive term. After nearly 15 years at the helm, the party confronts a cost-of-living crisis, the lingering effects of a pandemic, and growing anxieties about the future. The Conservative manifesto, titled Building a Brighter Future, aims to offer a path to prosperity, security, and opportunity for all, combining traditional themes with a focus on leveling up communities and investing in public services. Yet the question looms, will these promises resonate with voters or seem out of touch with the realities facing ordinary people? The political landscape is fragmented, trust in politicians has dwindled, and the manifesto must do more than outline policies. It needs to rebuild trust, inspire confidence, and present a compelling narrative for Britain's future. Let's delve into the key pledges, scrutinise their feasibility, and provide a balanced perspective on what the Conservative Party envisions for the future of Britain. The Conservative manifesto envisions a stronger, fairer, and more prosperous Britain, resting on promises of controlling immigration, boosting economic growth, and enhancing public services. It aims to level up opportunities and get Brexit done by capitalising on new trade deals and reshaped regulations. Central to this vision are free markets, limited government, and individual responsibility, with pledges of lower taxes and less regulation to spur economic growth. However, the Institute for Fiscal Studies warns that these ambitious plans may conflict with fiscal responsibility, potentially increasing government borrowing and putting long-term pressure on public finances. Critics argue the focus on growth and aspiration overlooks the deeper issues of inequality and the need for substantial investment in education and healthcare to truly level the playing field. The Conservative Party continues to champion welfare reform, aiming to create a system that balances support for those in need with incentives for work and self-reliance. The 2024 manifesto promises to make work pay by simplifying the benefits system and introducing stricter job-seeking requirements. These reforms aim to reduce welfare dependency and ensure fairness in the system. However, critics contend these changes could harm vulnerable groups, pushing them into further hardship. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation warns that cuts to universal credit could plunge hundreds of thousands into poverty. The debate over welfare reform is fraught and complex, highlighting the need for fair implementation and adequate support for those most in need. The Conservative Party stakes its reputation on economic competence, promising growth, low inflation, and sound finances through tax cuts, deregulation, and infrastructure investments. They aim to boost productivity and raise living standards by investing outside London and the South East, including new roads, railways, and broadband networks. However, the IFS cautions that these plans could significantly increase government borrowing, raising the debt-to-GDP ratio to a peacetime high, potentially leaving the UK vulnerable to economic shocks. Critics also argue that the focus on large-scale projects overlooks the need for targeted investment in deprived communities to address the root causes of inequality and deprivation. The Conservative Party has pledged to level up education standards across the country, ensuring that every child, regardless of background, has the opportunity to succeed. Their 2024 manifesto outlines a plan to achieve this through a combination of increased funding for schools, a renewed focus on core subjects such as maths and English, and greater autonomy for head teachers. They argue that their reforms will raise standards, improve discipline, and equip young people with the skills they need to thrive in the 21st century. One of the flagship policies in the Conservative manifesto is the introduction of a new system of school ratings based on a combination of academic attainment, pupil progress, and other factors such as attendance and behaviour. This new system, the Conservatives argue, will provide parents with more information about the performance of schools in their area, empowering them to make informed choices about their children's education. However, critics argue that the new school rating system will be overly simplistic and fail to capture the complex challenges facing schools in different contexts. They argue that the system will disadvantage schools in deprived areas, which often face greater challenges in terms of pupil poverty, special educational needs, and language barriers. Moreover, the National Education Union has expressed concerns about the Conservatives' plans to increase the use of standardized testing in schools. The NEU argues that this will lead to a narrowing of the curriculum, with schools focusing on teaching to the test at the expense of other important subjects and skills. The National Health Service, or NHS, is a cherished institution in the UK, providing free healthcare at the point of delivery. The Conservative Party has pledged to protect and strengthen the NHS, recognising its importance to the British public. The 2024 manifesto outlines a plan to increase NHS funding, improve access to GP appointments, and invest in new technology and treatments. The Conservatives argue that their plans will ensure that the NHS remains a world-class healthcare system that is free at the point of use. The manifesto pledges to increase NHS funding by £34 billion by 2024 to 25, in line with the long-term funding plan agreed in 2018. This represents a significant increase in funding, but it remains to be seen whether it will be sufficient to address the growing demands on the NHS, particularly in light of an aging population and the backlog of treatments caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The King's Fund, a leading health think tank, has warned that the NHS is facing a perfect storm of rising demand, workforce shortages, and financial constraints. The King's Fund argues that while the Conservatives' funding pledge is welcome, it is unlikely to be sufficient to address the scale of the challenges facing the NHS. Moreover, critics argue that the Conservatives' focus on increasing NHS funding does not address the underlying issues of inefficiency and waste within the system. They point to the need for structural reforms to improve efficiency, reduce bureaucracy, and empower frontline staff. Immigration has been a contentious issue in British politics for many years, with the Conservative Party generally advocating for tighter controls. The 2024 manifesto reaffirms the party's commitment to reducing net migration to sustainable levels, arguing that this is necessary to protect jobs, public services, and social cohesion. The Conservatives propose a points-based immigration system, similar to that used in Australia and Canada, which would prioritise skilled workers and those who can contribute to the UK economy. The manifesto pledges to reduce net migration to below 100,000 per year, a target that has been repeatedly missed by successive Conservative governments. The Migration Observatory at the University of Oxford has cast doubt on the feasibility of achieving this target, noting that it would require a significant reduction in both EU and non-EU migration. Critics argue that the Conservatives' focus on reducing net migration is misguided and damaging. They point to the economic benefits of immigration, with migrants often filling skills gaps and contributing to the UK economy. Moreover, they argue that the Conservatives' rhetoric on immigration has contributed to a hostile environment for migrants, making it more difficult for them to integrate and contribute to British society. The debate over immigration is complex and multifaceted, with strong arguments on both sides. While there are legitimate concerns about the impact of immigration on public services and social cohesion, it is crucial that any policies are evidence-based, fair, and do not create a hostile environment for migrants. The Conservative Party has faced criticism in recent years for its environmental record, with accusations of backsliding on climate change commitments and prioritising economic growth over environmental protection. The 2024 manifesto seeks to address these concerns, outlining a plan to reach net zero emissions by 2050, while also promoting economic growth and job creation. The Conservatives argue that they can achieve both economic prosperity and environmental sustainability through a combination of technological innovation, market-based solutions, and individual responsibility. The manifesto highlights the Conservatives' commitment to investing in renewable energy sources, such as wind and solar power, as well as in technologies such as carbon capture and storage. The Conservatives aim to make the UK a global leader in clean technologies, creating green jobs and attracting investment. However, environmental groups have criticised the Conservatives' environmental plan as lacking ambition and failing to address the urgency of the climate crisis. Greenpeace UK has accused the Conservatives of greenwashing their record, pointing to their support for fossil fuel extraction and their cuts to environmental regulations. The Climate Change Committee, CCC, an independent body that advises the government on climate change, has warned that the UK is not on track to meet its legally binding target of net zero emissions by 2050. The CCC has called for more ambitious policies and greater investment in areas such as energy efficiency, renewable energy, and sustainable transport. The Conservative Party's 2024 manifesto presents a vision of a brighter future for Britain, built on economic prosperity, social mobility, and a strong national identity. The manifesto outlines a range of policies aimed at achieving these goals, from tax cuts and deregulation to increased spending on public services and infrastructure. However, as this essay has demonstrated, many of the Conservatives' pledges are based on optimistic assumptions and face significant challenges in terms of feasibility and potential impact. The Conservatives' economic plan, for example, relies heavily on the assumption that tax cuts and deregulation will stimulate sufficient economic growth to offset the loss of revenue and fund increased spending on public services. However, independent analysis from organizations such as the IFS suggests that this is a risky gamble, with the potential to lead to higher borrowing, increased debt, and a weaker economy in the long term. Similarly, the Conservatives' pledges on issues such as education, healthcare, and immigration face significant challenges in terms of implementation and potential impact. While the Conservatives' aspirations to level up education standards, protect and strengthen the NHS, and reduce net migration are laudable, their proposed policies are often criticized as being insufficiently ambitious, poorly targeted, or based on flawed assumptions. In conclusion, the Conservative Party's 2024 manifesto is a mixed bag of ambitious promises, optimistic assumptions, and potential pitfalls. While the manifesto outlines a positive vision for the future, it is crucial that voters scrutinize the Conservatives' pledges, compare them to independent analysis, and engage in informed debate about the best way forward for Britain. Only through careful scrutiny and informed debate can we ensure that the next government, regardless of its political persuasion, is held accountable for its promises and delivers on its commitments to the British people.